I'm Emily Miller with California Sea Grant, and I'll introduce myself a little bit here in the work that I do. So California Sea Grant does work to connect citizens in coastal cities with their marine resources. And I have had the privilege to work on the California Commercial Fishing Apprenticeship Program, as well as a San Diego Seafood History cookbook that's coming out this winter. And in the process of this work, I've realized the importance of generational knowledge and knowledge sharing, and that happens through mentorship relationships. And in order to set the context for this discussion that's going to happen at the center of the room, hi, yeah, come on in, with some of our young producers, I will be telling you a little bit about the history of fishing in San Diego, in this region. And then I also want to explain to you this unusual format to the room today. This is called the fishbowl setting. And in the center of the room here, we have some of our young producers joining us today to engage in a dialogue based on the questions we have to ask. And underneath your seats, you should also find a Post-it note, and hopefully you've got a pen on you, because as part of this fishbowl format, we're encouraging community dialogue. So there's going to be space at the end of this session for you all to participate, maybe join us here in the center of the circle. We'll ask for volunteers for that, as well as express some of your thoughts on those Post-it notes. So just stay tuned for instructions in that regard.
Fantastic. We can get the next slide up. So what's really special, I think, about today is that instead of having a session for farmers and a session for fishermen and one for ranchers, we're all here together because we are coming to understand that this work is our work as farmers and fishermen and ranchers. We are the conduits from a natural system feeding into a bigger food system. And we all share that as roles here in this circle. And we share similar challenges in that work and similar joys. And some of the work that I got to participate in last year was talking about ag livelihoods and even the difference between a farm owner and a farm worker, that we're really not separate as owners and workers. We're not separate as fishermen or ranchers or farmers. We actually share these same basic needs that probably many of you in the room, as well as community members, also face. We all want to spend time with our families. We want to feel that we can have a secure home. We want to know that we don't have to worry about deportation, that we can stay here, build families, and build a longevity and a livelihood here. We have access to the health care and the community resources that we need to thrive, and we can all create a livable wage. And these are all shared efforts that exist amongst all of us, and specifically here we're trying to address how can we make this a successful future for us all in this work. And so that's what brings us here and threads us together, and we're going to talk a little bit more now about how we got to this point of where we are and where we're going to be going. So,
Kat? Yeah, if you would take a look at the slide here, commercial fishing and our relationship with seafood on this coastline has transformed over thousands of years. The original stewards of our coastline were the Kumeyaay people, and they continue to cultivate their maritime practices today as a culture. But pre-contact, pre-colonial period, they were people that harvested food from the sea in the form of tule boats, which are reed boats that are not pictured. They are not pictured on the screen. But they ate a wide variety of fish and shellfish using materials that were in their environment. And that seafood was dried and processed and traded among and between tribes on a scale of subsistence and carried vast distances on foot. Fishing took place at the tide line and offshore on those reed canoes, the tule vessels. And then the yucca and agave fiber nets, carved hooks, spears, and then as well as the two hands were the materials that dominated the fishing gear technologies of that time. Cut to today, things have changed quite a bit. I don't know if everyone in this room knows this, but at one point in time, commercial fishing was San Diego's third biggest industry, right behind aerospace and naval engineering because of our strong military presence here. Does anyone know what the third biggest industry is today? Can anyone shout it out? Any idea? Tourism, that's right. So imagine everything in San Diego that you know to reflect tourism, from the signs, the advertising, various promotions and festivals in Gaslamp District. And imagine that that's all commercial fishing. That's essentially the scale, the proportionate scale of how important fishing has been to this region. The pictures on screen in the upper left corner, that's a picture of Ballast Point. Does anyone know where Ballast Point is in San Diego? In Point Loma, right? Yeah, it's today the Point Loma Naval Base keeps their submarines there, but in the late 1800s, this is the site of a Chinese fishing camp, and Chinese immigrants were among our early pioneers in this region of international commercial fishing. They established international trade, shipping dried fish and dried shellfish to China. So that was from a cultural group here in San Diego. Cut to the image on the right, and you have Japanese fishermen, another immigrant group that arrived in the San Diego region in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and pioneered a fishery using bamboo poles, as you can see there, and they are capturing tuna. And they're on a larger vessel, and this is not a sail-powered vessel like the vessel at the left that you can see. So technologies are changing here. Human migration and technologies from different parts of the world are influencing the scale at which people are fishing. Cut to the bottom corner, that is a large purse seine vessel that's capturing an entire school of tuna. And that picture is actually taken from the window of an airplane that's used as a spotter for these vessels. So there's an intense amount of change in the amount of technology being used to catch seafood, and our scales of production are changing quite a bit. And then at the right, this is a very recent image taken from Tuna Harbor Dockside Market. In the background, you can see the skyline of San Diego, but the two boats pictured are quite small. They're family fishing vessels, and our marketplaces are shifting a little bit as our scales of production have come down since the 80s, and more seafood is being just finding avenues to be sold direct to the public. So the point I want to make here is that things have transformed quite a bit over time. If you're interested in this topic as to like how human migration and technology has influenced this history in relationship to seafood in San Diego, I definitely recommend you check out the cookbook that California Sea Grant has been working to put out, and you can find me to talk about that after this. And Kat, if you would tell us about some of this region's history of farming, I'd love to know about that.
Yeah. So, again, I can't speak fully to pre-colonialism other than knowing that the indigenous folks had farming in a different way than what we think of farming. They were still stewards of the land, and they did an incredible amount of work to maintain our oak forests here and planting food along their migration pathways. And they had an intentional connection with their space and with their food and their communities. And when the first settlers came here, they were, taking up a lot of the space and bringing in some of the fennel and the black mustard that you see growing wild today were some of those first seeds brought in to feed their cattle out in the open spaces. But we've really seen a lot of change happening from like this early 1900s, that is Mission Valley, as you can see, which is open space and now is very highly developed. And back then, land was about $150 an acre. So quite the decrease from the $15,000 that I think we know today, and probably higher in parts of San Diego. And back then, our top commodities were lemons, tomatoes, celery, grapes, and alfalfa hay. And I think a lot of us still have this idea and this notion that that is what farming is growing food, and that's what's happening in San Diego. We often hear that San Diego has more small farms than any other county, and yes, that is true. But as we've seen this shift over time, our top 5 commodities are no longer food. Those top 5 include tree and shrub crops, bedding and nursery plants, And the only one to make that top 5 is avocados at number 4. And even there, we're seeing a huge shift in competition for where avocados are really coming from in the United States. Throughout that shift, we've seen a rise and fall of dairy and egg production. When there were hundreds of dairies in San Diego, now I think there's just one of our favorites, Conine up in the San Pasquale area. And I just wanted to really bring in this, it's not my strong suit speaking about the history, but somebody who really influenced me was Mel Lyons. He's one of the founding directors of San Diego Roots Sustainable Food Project and one of the co-founders of Wild Willow Farm and Education Center. He grew up in the South Bay of San Diego, and I am leaning on him wanted to share his words because he did grow up here in this region in the 60s. And that's really not that long ago. And here's the story he tells about growing up in San Diego. On weekends, my family piled into our Chevy station wagon and toured 2-lane backcountry roads to distant rural destinations like Bonita and Spring Valley, places that are freeway close today. Along those winding roads were farm stands selling sun-ripened tomatoes, corn that squeaked, and particularly memorable strawberries from Chula Vista. The Tijuana and Otay River valleys were especially dense with farms, growing much of the fresh produce and dairy products that fed San Diegans. Coastal North County was a string of distinct cities bracketed by farms in the valleys between them. The scenery along the brand new I-5 at the time was of greenhouses, not of suburbs that were still decades away. So in our short time here in San Diego, we've seen a drastic change in our landscapes and in our coastlines. And this move from an agrarian lifestyle, the one that we really hold dearly as this is what it means to be a farmer and it feels so romantic and good, has been co-opted back in the 70s with this push to get big or get out in ag. Fence line to fence line planting that was dictated by our then Secretary of Agriculture. And so, this move into industrialization has really affected our food system in really dramatic ways and is divorcing us from that, becoming that conduit to our land and to our seas. And so it leaves us here in this moment to really explore what are these challenges that we have in front of us and where are those opportunities as well.
That was a beautiful story, Kat. Thank you for sharing. And much of what Kat is saying about the changes in the agricultural system, that those are echoed in what we see in our seafood system here today as well. And folks, if you're standing up against a wall, there are still some chairs over here. Feel free to move throughout the room. Don't worry, it's not a stilted session here. Can we get the next slide? Thank you. Yeah. So to recap some of those challenges that our producers are seeing today. Global competition, right? We've got products coming in from all over the world and often at different price points. Fair labor, fair trade is something we have to be concerned about. Are people being treated equitably in the production of resources in places that we don't have oversight over? And then they enter our markets and compete with local products. Rising costs. I mean, San Diego recently won the auspicious title of most expensive city in the country, right? I felt seen when I saw that. I don't know about everyone else. I was like, oh, finally, thank God. I mean, I wasn't pleased about, the reality of that, but it did feel nice to have that validated because it's really, really hard to live here. It's really, really hard to make a living here. And for the people that are at the very beginning of that supply chain, oh my God, don't even get them started. But we are going to get them started. They're here in the center of the room today. And then there's the development of the working waterfront and agricultural lands. Land is expensive. From a fisheries perspective, the land at the coastline is very, very expensive. So you can see in one of the pictures there you've got commercial boats in juxtaposition with high-rises. Isn't that bizarre? Okay, I think that's just bizarre. Similar thing is happening with agricultural spaces, right?
Yeah, indeed. We have these bigger developments moving into agricultural lands and and then they're like, why does it smell? I'm like, well, you move next to a farm and mulch smells sometimes. Yeah. One of the beautiful things though is that we can see in events like this is really that there is an incredible movement for local food and for building community, and we are all part of that. We are talking about how we sustain a business and build this community demand. So supply and demand, right? Our supply is being overrun by industrialized food, and so how do we create this demand for more of a local food? And so that's happening on a few different levels of doing policy work. And so I know there's some people in the room that are helping push policies to procuring local produce and making sure that that's happening on a grant level and a state level. We're talking about reclaiming our story as farmers of like, this isn't this hopeless image of like we work so hard and the poor struggling farmer or the fisherman. Like there is truth in that, and yet we are an incredibly strong and resilient person, and it's an incredibly rewarding lifestyle to have, and so we can be shifting that narrative, and we're just raising the awareness of how delicious and nutritious local beef, local fish, and local veggies are for our bodies. So by creating this increase of demand, an increase of supply can hopefully come and follow to match that. It's really tragic when we're losing farms and we're losing fishermen, we're losing access to lands, and so we have to be doing the work to support these businesses, and some of these businesses are making it happen because they need to reduce risk. It's really risky to have all your eggs in one basket, so having off-farm incomes. They're creating diversity, fishery diversity, crop diversity, multiple farms even, or we're creating niche focuses. So, you know, all that branding work, how do you make yourself stand out in a sea of all the buzzy things? It's, you know, really identifying with our values, and I think that can speak a lot.
So I'd like to introduce some of the young producers in front of you at the center of the room today. Thank you all for being here. From the fishing side, we have Maddox Cavazos, who's a young deckhand who's been working in multiple fisheries for some years, and he'll speak to his experiences in that. And then we have Ryan Sebo, who's owner and operator of, what is your vessel? The Sebo, okay. Yeah, Sebo Seafood. And so you do direct marketing to restaurants as well as selling wholesale, correct? Okay, awesome. And so I'll let Kat introduce our growers.
Yeah, the land-based side of folks. We have Ty Thompson with a rancher from Thompson Heritage Ranch. And we have from Ranchito Milky Way, a farmer and owner, Alyssa Brodsky. And a garden manager here is from Bianca Robertson from Garden 31. So welcome, welcome. We're excited to have a good conversation with y'all today.
We're going to go around you guys in a circle, and I'd like you to explain in one breath to each other and to this gathered audience how long you've been doing this work and how did you get into it?
My name's Ty Thompson. I've been in the agricultural business for about 10 plus years now. I started here in California about 5 years ago, and then I'm originally from Minnesota, so I got a couple years there in my background. And what was the other question?
I think you
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been fishing my whole life, but I just started commercially fishing about 5 or 6 years ago.
What led to you getting into that? Like, what motivated that, I suppose?
The recreational side, you know, we were fishing way too much and figured might as well monetize it.
I've been working in agriculture for about 10 years. I got my start in animal farming. I got an opportunity to work on an organic farm milking goats, and I totally fell in love, realized that that was the life for me. And then Christian and I started Ranchito Milky Way, where we grow vegetables. We started that about 3.5 years ago.
What was your name?
Alyssa. And this Christian, you can say how you got into it.
No. Hi, everybody. I'm Christian, co-founder of Ranchito Milky Way out in Bonita. And yeah, I've been in agriculture for now, was like 5 years-ish. And yeah, I got into it just health-minded, wanting to know more about, my mom got sick with breast cancer, wanted to know about food. That kind of sent me down a whole black hole, I guess, or green hole, I don't know if you want to call it, but just, yeah, and eventually led me to a place where Alyssa and I learned how to grow edible landscaping. And so, yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, I've been fishing my whole life, and I just kind of got into deckhanding and commercial fishing this past 2 years. That's it.
Hi, my name's Bianca. I come from an agriculture background, but I just recently went back to school for sustainable agriculture and got an associate's, and was just recently hired on by Garden 31 as their farm manager back in June.
Thank you. We're going to start in with the questions for you panelists. So if you have a thought that you'd like to share, please just indicate and we'll pass that mic to you. Don't worry, we won't force you to speak if you'd rather someone else share a thought. But the first question we have is, how is the food system movement generating opportunities in San Diego for you? Do you feel that it does? And if so, how?
Yeah, so Christian and I can talk to what's happening in the South Bay. We're in Bonita, so it's southeast. And what we really notice on the demand side, so people buying our products, that there is interest, and then definitely there is some interest. But when we look at like the demand coming from the community in terms of like farm to table restaurants or like local grocery stores, a lot of that is a little bit more like lip service at this point. The demand for Christian reached out to a local restaurant that says it's like farm fresh, and it was like the heat of summer and they asked for broccoli and mangoes. So we're like, okay, we understand that there's so much more to the restaurant industry than what really is, like, we're not trying to force it in, but we do know that people are going to that restaurant expecting farm fresh food, but they're probably not receiving it. So in the South Bay, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of food system movement creating opportunities, but there is definitely opportunities coming from other areas that help support us and get us stronger to do the community work that we need to do. So Food Shed is, probably most people here know it, but Food Shed is a collective or cooperative that is helping support small farmers through a distribution hub. And that helps us substantially by giving us a place to sell our vegetables and provide mentorship and all of this other stuff. And so that food system movement isn't necessarily directly in the South Bay, but they are really supportive. And that allows us to stay there where we're growing and actually help build that movement a little bit slower if it's moving a little bit slower than other places.
Thank you.
I would say that right now the demand is pretty high, but it's also getting higher as we're moving along. There's a lot of people who have land and they're wanting to start that farm, but there aren't enough laborers to help get that started. And I really think there's a lot of more opportunity to come rather than there is like right now.
Is that a similar experience for the fishing side of things? Is there demand and interest, but it's mixed? Would either of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's more of like the supply compared to the demand. There's a lot of supply coming in from other countries and farmed fish, and that's a big competition for us. Like, as soon as those countries' fishing season closes, our price increases dramatically, which is kind of not the best for us, but yeah, that's about all I got on that.
This seems like a pretty mixed scene. What do career options feel like for young producers in our region and beyond? If you care to draw a comparison, if you have experiences in other places, what does San Diego feel like for you as a career space?
So I don't really have any other careers that I can compare this to. I used to work in a greenhouse, and that's the closest thing I can compare it to. But it's definitely a difficult industry to get into. Well, not necessarily to get into, but to really get that ball rolling and get the experience and the help that you would need to be successful. Oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
What do the career options feel like in our region and beyond?
And I don't mean to be discouraging, but it really is an industry or career where it's kind of, at the beginning, feels like a sink or swim type of job. But as soon as you get through that like first or second year, I'm hoping, um, you'll start to really have that like routine and that system in place and that support, whether it be from like yourself or a team or that just like community that you would need to be successful in having a small farm. I do also think it's really hard for us down here in San Diego, where most of agriculture is focused in central or northern California. I think down here in San Diego, we only have 2 community colleges with a agriculture program, and if you go like CSU or UC, the closest is probably Pomona, but there is like a sustainability program down here in San Diego. But the focus on agriculture is not focused enough, in my opinion, and so that's just something, if you're going into this career, you have to consider, is there's a lot of support, but that support is so spread like thinly that it's hard to really get it.
Well, to relate to what everyone's kind of said, for us as a rancher, we do pork, beef, and chicken. I can't keep enough on my shelves, to keep everybody stocked up. So we're expanding and we're growing and trying at the same time trying to keep the quality there, maintaining everything to how we're supposed to. The career opportunity that I would say for a lot of people that are individuals that doing what I'm going to do in the field of raising livestock, you got to create a brand. You got to trust in the process. You got to get out there and do your work. We sell to about 10 restaurants in San Diego, so we're pretty swamped, and we've been going for 3 years here in Ramona. So for me, it's been an explosion. Just getting out there, doing a lot of cold calling, visiting, eating. That's about all I can say for us and how we grow.
So in terms of growing vegetables here in San Diego, I would say you kind of have like 2 main career paths. One is to start your own farm, and the other is to work in a nonprofit where they might be teaching other people how to farm or something like that. There's not so many just farms that have employees. They might have some employees, but that's pretty few and far in between. Christian and I got lucky that we were both entrepreneurial. We really wanted that freedom. Maybe it's self-fulfilling that farmers seem to be self-employed. Maybe you just can't handle it after a little bit. So I would say those are your 2 main options, is to start your own farm or go work for a nonprofit. It's very difficult to find other opportunities where you would just go manage somebody else's farm. It does happen, but it's kind of like limited.
I would say my experience South Bay area is I went to school for landscaping, basically horticultural management, and coming out of it, there's a lot of nurseries here in San Diego, right? But you don't necessarily think of San Diego as, oh yeah, there's a lot of places to grow vegetables, right? Or get into the career of growing vegetables. So bringing it up, the schools and colleges and local community colleges, maybe more education on that you can actually make this a business and how to go about doing that. The question was, is there how many career opportunities in this sector? And it didn't. Now looking back at it, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot, but there are places you can go to, and like Alyssa said, to maybe get a little taste, get your teeth grinded on what to expect maybe, but it is still, I think, there's still a lot more growth to take place in that, and yeah.
Maddox, I'd actually like to ask you a question, since it's in your 2nd year of commercial fishing, did you say? Did you have challenges in seeking career opportunities in this sector? Can you speak to that?
Well, finding someone to like take me on and like teach me everything I needed to learn was hard. It got really lucky with working with Bly and Darian. It's like it's hard to find someone to teach you, and you need more people willing to give young people a chance to learn, and that's pretty much it, I feel like.
From the other side of that, is it difficult to find deckhands, or is it difficult to keep deckhands in your experience, Ryan?
It's just like everything else, there's nobody, it's hard to find good help right now. And I found it now, but the first few years it was definitely a struggle. And like he's saying, you know, there's not a lot of hand-me-downs. Everybody wants to hold on to their industry secrets, you know, so it's hard to find some mentor to help, you know.
I see. Was that your experience too when you were
Yeah,
getting started?
definitely. I mean, I kind of, not say I did it by myself, but I didn't have a whole lot of help.
Yeah, it's familiar tune. At this point, we'd like to bring in our community mentors into the conversation. Will Tanner, Nan, and Chris please join us in the
We got
seats
our
around the
three
room?
circles here, yeah, and we can expand out a little bit. And yeah, and I'm just going to have you all just do a quick introduction of yourselves and saying how long you've been in farming, your name, how long you've been in farming, and what you hope to provide for that next generation of producers rather. Yes.
I'm Tanner Sarasby, owner of Sarasby Seafoods and co-founder along with Connie and both Nicole with our initiative, Local Fish Initiative. And that was aimed at really helping next-gen producers get into the industry, navigate the regulatory complexities, and hopefully connect with when it comes to market diversification, connect with other chefs in the area to get their products not just to market to wholesalers, but also to restaurants, because that can increase their bottom line. I started Sarasby Seafoods, a seafood distribution business, at 21, so I've been doing that for, I guess it's 7-8 years now. And yeah, I mean, there's tons of struggles, but there's a lot of opportunity. It's a very niche market, having local products, and I love what I do, but it's really important that we step into this graying industry and bring up and uplift these next gen producers, people like Maddox and Ryan too. That's the only way it's gonna continue. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So my name is Chris Burrows. I am the executive director of Garden 31 Community Initiative. We are a nonprofit organization that's focused on empowering people in disadvantaged communities by teaching them how to grow their own food. So we teach regenerative agriculture. We work with a lot of at-risk youth, formerly incarcerated, justice-impacted individuals. I started that organization in 2021 after building school gardens and teaching school gardening for another organization, and being a student in the Sustainable Agriculture Program at Miracosta. And prior to that, I was working in natural resources off and on. So, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hernan Cavazos, and I'm a co-founder of Solidarity Farm, and as well co-founder of Foodshit Cooperative. And yeah, I think, I know it's been maybe 12, 15 years of farming. I think, for the first 10 years of farming, we focus on making sure that we can grow the best produce and, have the best time and learn as much as we can. And we hit a bump at some point where we realized that young people weren't getting into farming. And also, same than Ryan was saying, the old school farmers, they're very hard to share your secrets sometimes. So we saw a huge gap, and we're like, okay, if we can figure out how to grow new farmers, we're gonna be out of business as well. So, we do a lot of trainings, a lot of apprenticeship programs, and it's super fun because it keeps you innovating. So an industry that is not innovating dies. So, part of having new people and also training new people and sharing the knowledge is you keep the ball moving, and it's a great way to transfer that knowledge, and so we've been focusing on a little bit of that. I forgot the question.
That was perfect. Yeah. Yeah, and this is just a note too that our young producers, if any of these questions feel good for you to chime in on, this is a group discussion here. But for the question for the group, how have the pathways of fishing, farming, and ranching careers evolved over time?
I was just chatting. I was in a dinner last night with Good Roots and Chuck. Hi, Chuck. And we actually did touch a little bit about this. And It's unfortunately, I'm old school. I'm young, but I'm old school. I don't like to be on my phone. I don't like computers. I don't like a lot of the technology out there these days. But unfortunately, if we want to survive as fishermen and ranchers, we gotta kind of go out of it. And it's a little bit sad, right? Because we're not only fishermen or farmers. We have to like be parents, accounting, business decision making, marketing guru, and so you have to like expand your repertoire in order to survive. Now, that's the way it is, right? So sometimes, and education too. So you're like also educating the customers. Why is the difference of buying bluefin from New Zealand or buying it from San Diego? What's that difference, right? So a lot of it is education, and but the technology and there's new things within our tip of our fingers that are making a huge difference. Back in the day as a farmer, if you needed to go check your account, your balance or your spreadsheet, you'll have to spend a whole day to go with an accounting and then go sit in an office for 12 hours. Now you can be on the field, you can be in your farm, and you can just pull up your phone and send a document that you need to send. And so that's kind of like needs that we have to kind of like keep innovating, but also keep us in business.
Yeah, I feel that the farming in particular has changed, kind of dependent on our food system. And as our food system has gradually, over the years, become more concentrated and controlled by higher corporations that have been able to make decisions that are affecting our farms and our agricultural operations. Agriculture has kind of in tow gone along with that, right? With as far as like farm bills and subsidies and things like that. And so there was a lot of small scale agriculture happening at one point in America, and now there's not. And so I feel like at this point, it's kind of we're kind of teasingly looking into maybe we should go back to a localized food system, and and here's an opportunity to show that small scale farming can work across a large swath of the population. But I think we really need to continue to put forth efforts into that. So the way that I think that it's changed, it's gone from like small scale production to large scale production to, all the stuff that comes along with that. And now we're kind of looking at the possibility of going back to small scale productions. But I think we need to really ramp that up, because it's kind of like now I pay for the sins of my father, and my food supply has become weakened and decreased due to the inefficiencies of our food system. So those are the changes that I've seen, and the particular one that I see happening right now is kind of like the opportunity to take a peek into what small-scale farming or local farming could look like on a large scale for the nation. But I think we really just need to ramp that up before generations and more generations don't have the opportunity to become farmers and don't have the opportunity to have healthy food systems.
Thank you. Yeah, Ty, I'm curious. I know a bit about like slaughterhouses and butchering and the access to USDA certified facilities and the challenges. Can you speak a little bit more about access to those?
Yeah, for me it's a little harder. We do travel our animals up north. We leave them for a grace period up there when they do arrive up at the slaughterhouse. There's no slaughterhouses down in Southern California, so it has been a challenge, but we figured it out. I don't like to have the stress on the animals, so that's why we give them a grace period of sitting up there for 4 days or so. But yeah, typically for us it's a lot harder to get to what we need to, but we're able to truck so many animals up at a time and keep our freezers stocked and full for the restaurants. So
That point about intermediate processing seems like an important one for fishing. Tanner, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to just touch on the fact, I guess I didn't say this in my introduction, but I come from a third-generation fishing family. So my dad's a commercial lobster fisherman and spot prawn. And I mean, thinking about how he started out in the industry, he was fishing with my grandpa also. And so that's kind of, it's more like an inherited knowledge that got him into the industry. And I mean, they built their skiffs, which are their small boats, in their garages to get started, and just went out there and caught. And there wasn't really, you know, the Department of Fish and Wildlife wasn't really regulating fishing at that time. So for him, it was fish, sell, fish, sell. The commercial business really wasn't, there wasn't much of an identity for commercial fishing in comparison to this big gap between sport and hobbyist fishermen and commercial fishermen now. And so, you know, I look at it as, I mean, okay, here's a great example. My dad, he started fishing for spot prawn, deep water. It was kind of experimental for him at the time, and then the department came in and they started issuing the limited entry permits. And at the time, the permit was $35. Now, that same permit is over $1 million. So we're talking about, you know, and this is the period of, I mean, my dad's now in his 60s, but it's still a short period of time to see such a drastic change like that. It makes it really hard for new entrants. And even my brother, for example, who's now deckhanding for my dad, excuse me, when he started out, he was working with my dad for, since he was 16, saved up enough money to buy a boat. He didn't have any limited entry permits. He only had an open access commercial fishing license, so he could, which really limited him on what he could catch, and it wasn't viable enough for him to keep going. So he actually ended up selling his boat and went back to working as a crew member for my dad. So you're seeing this, I guess, shift. I mean, I think the regulatory complexities, as I talked about before, that is a huge challenge in addition to the cost of these permits and these licenses. I mean, in addition, I'd say with pathways to get into the industry, I mean, Maddox, for example, how did you find Bly? It was kind of like word of mouth to find somebody to fish with, right? And these these old school blue collar men, like my dad, for example, or grandfather, they're less likely to bring on like a random crew member to come work with them. And it's all like private knowledge. And it's, you know, the fishing industry is interesting because you're competing for the same territory, you know? So it's kind of like, yes, these are your allies, but they're also people that you're competing with every single day. So I find that that's, I guess, a consistent challenge. But I think with the next generation and these people that are interested in becoming, you know, commercial fishermen, that you start out in the sport fishing industry, right, Ryan? And that's how you kind of learn, I mean, the tricks, tools of the trade, and then realize you might love it so much you want to get into commercial fishing. It's just, I think with these, now, I mean, I'm thinking about my brother, for example. It's really hard for him. He's really having a hard time determining what his next steps are. Is it buying another boat, trying to save money? Funding is really an issue with trying to get a loan for a commercial fishing permit. Yeah, I mean, I guess long-winded, but, and I don't want to sound, again, discouraging, but it is a big challenge. And I think us stepping up and having conversations like this is how things can change. And we can put our heads together and think about how we move forward.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Tanner.
You said something about processing too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, and here's the thing. With commercial fishing, you can be a commercial fisherman, but you can't cut your fish, process it, and sell it legally without an FDA HACCP certified facility to do so. And those facilities cost an arm and a leg. And as a newcomer in the industry, you can only sell whole fish, which is such a challenge. Ryan just recently caught a swordfish. He showed me a picture of it. And he had a really hard time selling it because these chefs can't necessarily take a 400-pound swordfish. You know, it's like, can you expect this chef? And luckily, he did find a chef that was able to take it. But it's few and far between that are willing to take whole fish. So that really puts us in a corner, you know, when you're distributing your seafood and trying to find the best avenue for it. It's kind of like the wholesalers have a strong arm on you because that's your only outlet for your catch right now. So, you know, we've had conversations about how a processing hub where multiple fishermen could come and process their fish could be an option, but that's going to require subsidies and funding from somewhere. So we're working towards that. A lot of conversations going on, but I think that's one solution that could come in the near term. But yeah, processing is a huge issue, especially with the perishability aspect too. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I was listening to you, and it just made me think, like, talking about the regulations and, the wholesalers and the agents and the distributors and all these people that have their hands in different people's pockets. I think we just need to realize that that's the way that it is, and it's designed like that because of our capitalistic system. And it's gonna continue to be like that. Like, everybody is gonna be taking a piece of something until there's systemic change in the way that we operate financially. And other than that, it's just gonna be that.
I'm going to have a quick go around for the group. And so in just 3 words, you only get 3 words. How do you stay inspired?
One thing I stay inspired by is I always think about how I guess I'm feeding the masses, right? And that was always a dream. It's important to I guess follow your dreams and stick to what you're really designed to do, and don't let no one get in your way or nothing get in your way. That's how I stay inspired. So
I can't keep it to 3 words, sorry, but I'd say that, like, I really stay inspired looking to other industries like both farming and ranching. I think that you guys are ahead of the fishing industry with the farm to table movement, and I think the sea to table movement is right behind it. And I look to you guys with certain CSA models, community supported agriculture, and then community supported fisheries. We kind of adapted that model from the farming industry, and that's been a success. Being able to distribute your catch direct to consumer it has been super inspiring, because that isn't the way it was for my dad, my grandpa. Just everything only went to wholesalers. So very inspired by the farming industry.
It is hard to stay inspired. There's lots of ups and downs. Family helps. I like being able to, we just run a day boat, so I spend a lot of time with the family. Sometimes I'm out for a couple days, but that and working with all-star chefs, they're great people. It's a good time. It's not all about being on the water. It's a lot of work off the water too, so.
Yeah, stay inspired. I did have 3 words, but I think there's kids in here. One of the ways I stay inspired is by thinking about those that design this, and that would seek to take advantage of myself or others in my community, and looking at myself as fighting in that war. Being thankful for those that came before me and the legacy that I'm walking in, and trying to do better for those coming after me. And when the youth that I work with, especially, I call them my little hood babies, my little knuckleheads, when they turn to me and say, "Hey, Chris, could we do this for a living?" Or, that kind of stuff just reminds me that that's why I'm doing it.
For me, it's definitely knowing my customers, like having a weekly relationship with my customers. Christian and I run a CSA, so people come to our farm every week to pick up their vegetables, and having the relationship with them, and really just like, it's so much more than just food. I think if we have a lot of pest pressure, or if we have like weird looking stuff or anything, those customers come in and they love what they get. And I think, and then they love us and we love them. I wish we could invite them all to our wedding. Like, they're like such a part of our lives. We see them more than we see most of our family members. And, we get advice from them, and it's so much more than growing food. And so I think in the middle of the week when we don't see them and we get really into the process, I can get really uninspired. But then when it comes to them telling us what they ate, what they made with their food, seeing them interact with each other and sharing recipes, I think that keeps me inspired every week.
Yeah, I mean, you took it right out of my mouth. I mean, there's this kid that comes every week, Aldo, and his mom, and it's super awesome to get to see his face. We got to go pick strawberries together, right? You got to build that relationship, right? And I think that's so super important in an urban area where there's not really access to food or local foods, organic foods, whatever you want to call it, right? It's I think that's what's gonna push it to the next level, are these relationships. So that keeps me inspired a lot as well, and yeah, I had some other ones too, but I think you said it too. Take it steal a little bit from you, Chris. Just this idea that we're, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it a war, battle, whatever it is, just this transitional period, right, where we get to help influence change. And I think that's something that, whether you get to see it within the kid that comes through, whether we have kind of like an apprentice right now that's coming through and is thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Is this a career potentially? At least it's experience that then she can add into her toolbox and something that helps her move forward. And maybe she'll be an employee in the future. Maybe we can train somebody that maybe otherwise wouldn't have had this opportunity. So I think, things like that are really inspiring and keep me going. So.
Yeah, I think something that keeps me inspired is like experiencing and like seeing new things. Just it's awesome. Just keeps me coming back. So.
3 words. Yeah, no, I feel like, honestly, this keeps me inspired, being here, meeting new people. And honestly, San Diego is amazing, and the same issues they are having ranchers and fishermen, it's very similar to what's happening to us as farmers. And I think I say it all the time, but if we can figure out how to tackle these issues together, there's non-stop, and keeps them inspired that everybody eats. So that's always good. You gotta eat 3 times a day, so that's super inspired to stay in business. And on the mentor side, or the teaching side, or the classes side, I turn to be a little bit, I can be very, as a farmer, you go to some dark times sometimes, especially in fishermen too, when they're by themselves out in the water, they probably hit a lot of dark times too. But when you have that first kid that goes to a farm and pulls a bunch of carrots out of the ground and just watching their face, it's like, wow, it's like, that's so cool. And it's probably as equal when you take someone fishing and you see a first yellowtail hitting the deck, and it's like, wow, and just change their life forever. So those little moments keep me inspired.
My 3 words are Logan Mac Rosales, which is the name of my 5-year-old son.
Nice. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. And good job on 3 words. And know my customers. That was a good 3 words. We are going to, at this time, bring in our TA providers. So as the fishbowl works, if 3 people in the inner circle or more want to please step up, and we're going to cycle out as we bring in our other TA providers. If more people want to head out and you're like, oh, I'm done being in the spotlight, yeah, we'll do a little transition to hear about what these other support programs are looking like. All right. Thank you for producers, mentors.
And those of you who have just joined us in the inner circle, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hi, I am Connie Winterstein. I am the co-founder of Local Fish, and I'm also the Land Tenure and Stewardship Director at San Diego Food System Alliance.
Hi, everybody. My name is May, and I'm here working with Foodshed as a beginning farmer specialist and have a background in educational agriculture and teaching.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Schuler. I work with the San Diego Food System Alliance as the Business Stewardship and Outreach Director.
I'm Tanner, co-founder of Local Fish.
And my question for you today is, what programs or initiatives are in the works to currently support our next-gen producers in San Diego County? And how are they helping to address some of the key challenges that we've heard about today?
So we started Local Fish, and it's kind of grown legs of its own as like the public benefit arm of Saraspi Seafoods, and it was really stemmed from, I guess, my inspiration to help other fishermen. There was a big influx of new fishermen when this bluefin tuna hype happened in San Diego. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar, but the bluefin they're highly migratory species, but they've been showing up in our coastal waters for the past 5 years abundantly. And a lot of these next-gen fishermen on skiffs have been going out and they buy their commercial fishing license, and they've been reaching out to me interested in selling their catch and doing it the right way. And Connie and I linked up, and Nicole as well, and we were trying to figure out a solution to give them a little bit more agency over their catch. So when I started Saraspi Seafoods, a lot of these fishermen approached me and said, well, can you sell my fish? You have the license to do so, you're set up to do so. And I did it, but I didn't love being a middleman. I didn't take pride in selling someone else's catch as if I caught it. I mean, when it came to selling fish for my family, it was one thing, but selling fish from other fishermen, I felt like it was something that they should be able to do themselves. You know, reducing that middleman price increase and, you know, be able to sell their catch for the highest price possible. So with Local Fish, we started a website. It's called getlocalfish.com. I think it's pretty catchy. And we have brought on over 30 fishermen in San Diego that we're hoping to uplift, and we're continuing to kind of play matchmaker with the chefs that we work with right now to get them in through their door and instead of selling to wholesalers, be able to diversify their market a bit. So we also have resources for navigating the regulatory complexities, what permits you need, what licenses you need, how to sell, how to transact. So we've been working on that and working one-on-one with fishermen to get them to the next step. So yeah.
So around 2.5 years ago, we launched the Local Food Economy Lab, San Diego Food System Alliance initiative that works to support the viability of small-scale farmers, fishermen, and food business owners, and really focusing on equity and centering community ownership. And when the lab was being designed, it was very intentional to bring in young producers, producers of all levels, really, in San Diego. Some of folks in this room are lab advisors here. So some folks that really would come in and co-design this initiative to be the most relevant and to have the programs that are that really can help tackle the needs of the producers. And since we've launched, we keep evolving, we keep expanding, always very in touch with the input from these producers to make sure that the programs are still relevant and really attending to the needs of these producers. So we're now working in several different areas, one of them being fostering collaboration. So this event is a good example, this session is a good example of shared spaces that the Local Food Economy Lab fosters. And we have, over the last 2 years, also hosted several workshops on different topics, such as financial literacy. As Nan said, like, now you have to be everything, not just the farmer, right? So we're helping farmers to develop these other skills that are also needed. Policy advocacy, cooperative development were also other topics we have been hosting workshops in. Another way we've been supporting is by providing one-on-one support for these producers, either by them reaching out to us, and then we provide them more informal support by either referring them to the right organization that can help them best, or sharing the right resources, matching them with a marketing channel. And more formally, we have the pollinator program, which Alyssa is next to me here as one of part of our cohort. We've been working with several businesses like Ranchito Milky Way over the last, we have like this program where for up to 2 years, we have $25K available per business, inviting 6 businesses per year. And that funding can be spent for like professional development fees and hiring consultants, bookkeepers, lawyers, things that can really help them support their viability. And there are 3 other areas of our work that we're very excited to be developing now that are cooperative development. So as you can see in this event today, a lot about cooperatives. We really want to make the ecosystem in San Diego be more supportive of cooperatives. Community capital, so helping farmers, fishermen, food business owners to access grants, loans that are more favorable terms, that are more adequate for their scale. And then lastly, land tenure, which I'll pass to Connie since she's leading that.
Hi, the Alliance recently launched a land tenure and stewardship initiative, and a big part of that is just equitable land tenure for particularly farmers of color, indigenous farmers, black farmers, just putting the power back into the people. We're looking into seeding a community land trust. We're also working with municipalities to try to have more equitable land leases. So yeah, that's it, and stay tuned.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess I'll start with what's available and what's to come, because I'm seeing that there's like a little bridge here. So as far as what's available for next gen, small scale and urban farmers, as Bianca mentioned, we do have, I think, really strong community college curriculums around those, and I just want to shout out Seeds at City, who's most of everyone's here. And so yeah, that's basically them and Maricosta basically are holding down the front of educating our next generation of farmers, or folks that could find a pathway in ag. And then as Alyssa said too, there's not really a path from your education towards landing jobs. There's not a lot of farms that are seeking laborers, or that you can get that kind of training and start working under someone to provide that mentorship. So a lot of folks end up starting their own farms, and so then you get into the barrier there that is land access and resources, because those things in San Diego, as Emily said, are very expensive these days and are getting increasingly so, especially as things become so scarce during climate collapse. So from the perspective of Foodshed, I guess what we're doing is being able to provide TA, technical assistance, to our farmers that are on our crop plan right now, but then also developing, hopefully in partnership with the San Diego Food Systems Alliance, a 40-acre incubation farm that we can start onboarding people and farmers that either want to start their farm or expand it a little bit from 1/4 acre to maybe up to 2 acres, depending on what works for them. So I guess a lot of that, and the theme that I'm hearing from everybody, is this needing to share the risks of starting our own ventures.
Thank you, May. At this time, I'm going to ask the audience to reflect a little bit on the following question. I know not all of you have experience with food production, but your perspectives are still important to this conversation, because we're talking about community and we're talking about mentorship, and this is something, as I heard from the lively conversation at the beginning of the session today, that we all have experience with. So how has community functioned for you in your small business or your organization or individually? Has community helped you be more successful in a new field? And what role do you think can it play in fostering the growth of new and beginning producers? So please feel free to raise your hand and share your thoughts if you have any thoughts on how those experiences have worked for you in your life. Take a moment.
How has community impacted you? Any hands?
If you just say your name.
My name is Jesse Lopez. I have no experience in any kind of food production. I work at VCC, a nonprofit, and we do work with Coastal Roots Farm, which I want to shout out. But community is a big part of what we do. We are community outreach, and I think having feedback from community and fresh perspectives and point of views from people who are dealing with like the issues in the communities is something, because I've gotten ideas from people in the community that have helped my projects. That's something I wouldn't have ever thought of, and so I'm really thankful for everybody who is in the community and goes out and shares their ideas and just opens my mind, my ears. And I think that's one thing that we can all do, just opening up our ears more and figuring that, like, one movie that I like to reference a lot is I don't know if you guys know the Temple Grandin Temple, something like that, where she revolutionized the farming industry. And it was like people always underestimated her because she was autistic, but it was a point of view, it was a fresh point of view, and it helps so much. And I think once we open our eyes and open our minds to people who we think we just pass off as, no, like, you know what, we're not going to listen to them, we really can learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, diversity of perspectives definitely makes us stronger. Does anyone else have a thought on how community has helped them in the work that they do?
Hi. My thought is about resilience. During COVID, when the food system sort of broke down on both ends, when the fishermen they couldn't sell their fish to restaurants or wholesalers the way that they were before, and the community also couldn't have access to food the way that they did before. I think it was community that built that resilience within the community, and I think it's so important to remember that, because if the current food system as we know it collapses, we're all going to starve to death without community. And it goes both ways.
Good point. This actually goes back to what Nan was saying about getting in line with tech, because I believe Facebook was very much responsible for a lot of the networking that allowed that fish to get moved, and that's online. Do we have one other person right here? Okay, go ahead, please.
Hi. I actually do grow food, and I've been doing it for most of my life, but more recently as a restaurant owner who became a farmer. And so one of the pieces of community for me has been, while we own the restaurant, to try and educate our clients and other chefs as to the value of local food, the taste of local food, the value of keeping that money inside the community, and to know that broccoli really doesn't grow in San Diego in the summer, but what is seasonal is wonderful. And as a result, I built a community of chefs and hospitality friends and acquaintances and partners, so that when I now am trying to find places to sell my produce, I have people to reach out to. I have been trying over the years to also connect other growers and chefs together. And I would encourage everybody who's looking for chefs to buy your produce to reach out to me, because I know there are chefs out there that want to do this. A lot of them don't know how, or they need more product. So Kat has my information, and you guys can talk to me if you want to, but community is critical.
Hi. Hi, my name is Carolina Miller, and I work at the Fallbrook Food Pantry. And of course, as a nonprofit, community for us is everything. We get about 1.3 million pounds of food every single year, and probably 30% of that food comes from the community, from local farmers, from people that just have a few acres and they are growing their food in their backyards, and if they cannot sell it or it's an overflow, they decided to give it to us, and we give that back to the community for free. Nobody has to pay for our services. So community for us is amazing. Lately, we've been working with Kendall Farms in Rainbow, and they have about 2 acres that they want to donate to us to grow food to feed our people. So if we have grants and opportunities to keep growing, the community also can grow, as well as we are teaching new generation of how to grow their food and just keep the chain going.
And I think, do we have a couple more minutes still? Yeah, I saw a hand. Was one a hand back here?
Hi, thank
the
you
next
for
slide.
inviting us. So I have a question. We're tribal, and you know, for us, the fish had originated for the tribals here down in Imperial County. And so when COVID had came, it shut down everything, and including the jobs. And my husband here right now, Cecil, ended up getting a job for fishing, and he went out all the way to Alaska, and he's been there for 5 years, and he loves the fishing industry. And you know, it's opened up all these questions. That's why we're here, so thank you. Do you guys offer training to California residents? Do you offer workshops so that, you know, other people are learning more about this, kind of like we are? I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you.
That's a great question, and I will stay and I will talk to you after the program, because at California Sea Grant we do have the commercial fishing apprenticeship program that can offer some resources to that extent. So we'll connect.
I saw a couple hands. There's a lot of hands.
The specific knowledge component is something that an apprenticeship program from technical assistance providers is very, very hard to provide, because the knowledge is often specific to different fisheries and even like specific boats that have a certain gear type. So what the California Commercial Fishing Apprenticeship Program gives more guidance on is like how to run your business or get one started, how to navigate the permitting process, and then like what you can anticipate from like expenses in starting up a business. But that specific knowledge that is really, really hard to both aggregate and to teach. This is a good question. And for everyone else, right before you share your thought there, I want you to take a look at the screen behind us and at these two prompts. We've got, what hopes and dreams do you have for young producers? And what would you like their future to look like? And those sticky pads under your chairs, we'd like you to write your thoughts on those. And as you exit the room today, stick those thoughts to the flip chart, okay? So I'll just get you guys started on that right away.
Yes, I'm not a producer. I'm just sitting in the back, but I'm extremely interested in farm to table or fish to table. But at this point, it means restaurant table. So I would like to be your community. I would like to support you, and I need a lot more information. I moved to San Diego 2 years ago, and I couldn't find a farm where I can go out with boxes and buy stuff, and I'm still not finding my local fish. And I would like to eat just local food and local fish and veggies, and this information is not out there. I think if I can add a little bit of, I don't know, my observation that you guys need to network a lot better, and us, the community, let us know how to help you. I want to buy the stuff, and my community want to buy the stuff, but the local farmers market in Oceanside is, it's busy at night with the food stands, but not in the morning with your products, and I don't know what's wrong. So and I think it's the information flow is wrong. But I love to be here today, so thank you. Don't want to take more time.
Thank you.
Hannah, you could even speak to some of the resources that SDFSA has put together about finding local food, right? And please, yes, continue with writing your thoughts on the Post-it notes. And we're just at the end of the session here. So as you exit the room, make sure you stick your Post-it to one of those flip charts for us to admire at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you. To the specific question on how to find local food, I would actually defer more to Food Shed, like their network of farmers is a great place to look at, and Local Fish, their network of fishermen.
And these will be included right in the post session, so we'll have these resources linked to you and sent out to you as well. And we had another resource over here that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I work for the UC Cooperative Extension Office here in San Diego County, and we do also have a story map that's online that lists farmers markets, farms. We're trying to promote agritourism and make it more accessible to people. So you can either contact us to have your farm listed as a site, or if you're a consumer that's looking to visit a farm, that's a great place to check as well.
Yes, that's great to know. And in our webpage, I'm going to put the web pages of all these organizations up in the next slide. our webpage, there's a new webpage is going to be launched in a couple weeks, and there's going to be libraries of resources, but it's not necessarily for the consumers, but for the fishermen, the farmers, and the food business owners to help them navigate regulation, find resources, grants, loans. So our upcoming webpage is going to be all about that.
Yeah, so continue writing your notes, but we do have one last activity to close out our session today. And I'd like you to take a minute to think, especially after everything you heard today, think of one admirable trait you would use to describe a producer. Go ahead and take 30 seconds to think of an admirable trait. And we're going to ask a couple of you to just stand up and share that with us.
I'd say someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty. That would be what I would say.
All right.
I would say devotion and obsession, because I think to wake up every morning and do this work, you have to have those two things.
And I would say resilience, because you need resilience in both of these industries.
I'd say gratitude, I think, is the most important. Just being grateful for people who are helping you, the water, the soil, just everything in its full circle.
I would add resourceful. Yeah, thank you to all the producers. Thank you.
I believe that you should evolve. And I think that's the fear of holding too much information close to the vest, is you don't evolve enough beyond what you know. So you care too much about what you currently know instead of learning something new to take you further into the future.
Courageous, selfless providers.
I would just say, like, holding the courage to push through the discomfort of the times where we don't necessarily know what's next. So I guess comfort and being uncomfortable.
We've been working with some producers to figure out what they want in their employees, and the word that keeps coming up is grit. You know, like whatever that means, grit.
Optimism, the ability to put a teeny tiny little seed in the ground and be hopeful for what it's going to grow and how much it will produce.
Maybe not one that that comes in all of us, but I think producers should learn to cultivate humility in themselves, because you get knocked down a lot, and you should learn from those lessons, I guess.
I would say stubbornness, you know, to have something that you believe in, just be so stubborn about it and just keep fighting for it. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sahar. I'm with the lovely New Roots Farmers here, and one or two traits I would use to describe them is wise, because they pass down a load of wisdom every day, and they are carrying centuries of indigenous farming practices that they have brought from their own countries here, and I find that very admirable. And also patient, because, you know, it takes a lot to grow food, and it takes patience.
Hernan, you were giggling, so I gotta know. Stubbornness.
One admirable trait I recognize in food producers is their altruism. You all are very concerned with everybody else. So thank you.
Yeah, I wrote down unselfishness. That's something I really admire. And the other one was commitment, just continuing to feed us. Thank you.
And this is going to be the last one after this.
So I would add, and this goes to what I hope for our producers also, the ability to keep that joy going. I know that, like, at City, when I see someone walking around campus and eating something, a piece of fruit that I ate, like, just like greedily, like getting it all over their face and stuff, is like, that's what I love about farming. And like, I I can imagine it can be tough, especially in like ranching or fishing. I would imagine that you don't see people eating your food quite as much as I do. It's one of the things about working on a community college campus where most of the food is getting put directly back into people who are walking back and forth. Me and Javier get to sit around and like talk to people about their recipes and watch and see how good this food tastes, you know, like especially with fruits and veggies. A lot of people in the U.S. need to eat more of those, and to me that means finding joy in them, you know. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. If there's one more person that wants to share.
Okay, so I was just trying to think of like when I see Christian as a farmer and all of the things that make him a really good producer, I would think there's so many things about him that make him an amazing farmer, but I would say one of them is his willingness to have divergent thought, to not really accept the status quo or to not accept really anything. Sometimes it's super frustrating, but he will push further no matter what. Every week he's coming with an idea that might have contradictories to what we think. He is on nobody else's timeline, which is also annoying. But that means that he'll take that extra time to stay in the field, to do what's necessary. And I think all of the really good farmers I know will entertain crazy divergent thoughts and also are willing to do what's necessary outside of the timeline of a busy life.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can we get a round of applause for our young producers? Thank you. Please give yourself a round of applause as well. Community is those of you in the audience and those of us up here.